Hi everyone! Today we're going to talk about bees. And I'm going to read this book called Bees. Bees are another type of insect. So insects have 3 body parts and 6 legs and antennae, and bees have wings, just like butterflies. Now you'll see some similarities between bees and butterflies as we're reading the story, but they're very different as well. What is that bee doing behind the flower? Here are the members of the bee family. There are the worker bees, which are all female bees, girl bees. The queen bee, which is, there's 1 queen per hive, and the drones. Those are all the male bees or the boys. But what's that bee doing behind the flower? Can you see the wings? See what's it doing? It is feeding on nectar and collecting pollen to make honey. Some bees create a kind of glue called propolis from plant gums and resins. They use it to seal cracks in the walls of their beehive. See the bee on the flower here? There's his proboscis, and this is pollen on his legs, her legs. Worker bees are all female. Look closely at the head of the bee. It sees, moves around, and communicates with other bees by using its eyes, which are on the opposite sides of its head, its eyes, and its antennae, which are kind of in the front. The antennae allow them to recognize the scent of other bees. So here's 2 bees meeting. They're using their antennae to know who they're meeting. When the bee has found a field of flowers, it figures out where it is by comparing the distance between the sun and its beehive. By flying in circles, it signals to the other bees the direction and the distance to the flowers it has found. So that kind of worker bee is called a scout bee. And the scout bee leaves the hive, and when they find a good patch of flowers, then they go back to the hive and they let the other bees know where the flowers are by doing a special kind of dance. In order to eat, bees leave the beehive in search of nectar and pollen. Then they return to the hives like the wooden one here. So here are bees pollinating and sipping nectar. And then these bees are going inside the hive. The youngest bees do the house cleaning, stock up the food, feed the larvae, and keep an eye on the front door. By flapping their wings, the bees keep the air in their beehive cool. So that each bee has a different job inside the hive. Some bees protect the hive, called the guard bees. Some bees take care of the babies, the larvae. Those are called the nurse bees. And some of them are cleaning the hive, keeping it cool with their wings. How is the beehive made? The bee eats honey, and its body turns it into wax. It pulls the wax out of its abdomen with its feet. The worker bees make wax scales, which they chew and soften with their jaws. Then they stick them together to make the cells you see here. So here are some bees making parts of their hive. When the queen goes on a mating flight, hundreds of drones pursue her. She chooses about 10 drones to mate with. Then the queen enters the hive to lay her eggs. You see, the queen looks a little different than the other bees. The queen is much bigger. Workers surround the queen as she lays 1 egg in each cell. She can lay over 1,000 eggs a day. After 8 days, the worker bees close the cells with a wax cover. So here's the queen bee here laying 1 egg in each cell. Do you notice that all the cells in the beehive are the same shape? They're all hexagons. And the bees make, every beehive, they make hexagon cells. And then after the queen lays the eggs, you see these other bees are sealing them up. They're covering up the cells to keep the eggs safe. And then these are the larvae. And then this shows how a bee grows. So it starts off as an egg on first day, and then by the third day, the egg gets a little bigger. By the 9th day, it looks like this, like a larva. And the 10th day, it starts to change to a pupa, the 19th day, and then the 21st day, it looks like an adult bee. After 8 days, the worker bees close the cells with wax cover, I said. When the young bee emerges from its cell, a worker bee gives it nectar to drink. The queen, thousands of workers and some drones fly out of the hive. This is called swarming. What happens when there's no more room in the beehive? Then they have to move to a new one. A couple of days later, the bees are settled in their new hive. So they all come out of the hive, and the swarm gathers together, and they fly to a nearby branch to wait while the scout bees search for a new home. So all the bees from one hive stick together with one queen. And the scout bees look and find a new hive. And there they are, flying into their new hive. Now this hive is man-made. A person made this hive for the bees to live in. But there are wild bees who make their own hives in trees and things like that. We might see that next. At the end of the summer, the beekeeper takes a frame full of honey from the beehive. Then with his knife, he scrapes the honey off the comb. So this is a beekeeper. A beekeeper is kind of like a bee farmer, someone who keeps bees in a hive like this one. So a beekeeper probably built this hive, and then at the end of the summer, they go and they take out what's this called? Off the comb. He takes out the frame, and he's using a knife to scrape off the honeycomb to get the honey. And why do you think he's wearing this protective hat and this protective netting over his face and gloves and a suit? Do you guess what do bees do when they get scared or angry? They can sting. So the beekeeper wears this to keep the bees off of his face and off of his body, off of his hands, so he doesn't get stung when he's taking the honey. So there are different kinds of beehives. Here's a beehive that looks like a trunk of a tree with a little roof. Here's a beehive. This one looks like a basket. And then these are some tools of the beekeeper. Bellows, a smoker, and a bee comb. And I think they use the bee brush. The bee brush to clean off the shelves or the frames. And the smoker is to make the bees put smoke in their hive so the bees fly out so he can get the honey. And then each honey tastes slightly different depending on which flowers the nectar came from. So if you ever bought honey at the store, it might say it's clover honey or it's wildflower honey. So those are some different types of honey that bees make their honey from. They get pollen and nectar from wildflowers, and they make wildflower honey, or clover, and they make clover honey. Winter has come, and the bees slow down. They slow down and rest or hibernate inside their hive. The bees cluster and keep close to their queen. They feed themselves with the honey that they stored during the summer. There's not any flowers to find pollen or nectar in the winter, right? So that's why they have honey in their hive to eat. So here is a hive of wild bees. See, they built their hive inside this tree. Here's a nest of paper wasps from South America. They make their nests out of paper. This is a paper-enclosed nest of yellow jackets made from chewed bark. So every kind of bee uses their bodies to make their homes or their hives. The work of other insect master builders. In South America, the South American wasp nest is made from vegetable fibers that have been flattened down into a paste. One of the most unbelievable insect-made buildings is the termite mound. It's made of soil and saliva, or spit. So the termites, these are what termites look like. This is the queen, the king, the soldier, and a worker. This big house can shelter 5,000 termites. Let's look what inside looks like. On the inside, storage rooms for food are connected by thousands of tunnels. So there's different places where they sleep, where they eat, where they use the bathroom, where they keep their food. And that's the end. So bees are very interesting animals. And I actually wrote a little song about bees, and it's to the tune of Oh Christmas Tree or Oh Tannenbaum. It goes like this. Oh honeybee, you're always busy working. Oh honeybee, on the flowers you are lurking. You make the honey for my tea, with nectar found by the scout bee. Oh honeybee, you're always busy working. Oh honeybee, you're always busy working. Oh honeybee, on the flowers you are lurking. The guard bees work to protect the hive. The nurse bees keep the queen and eggs alive. Oh honeybee, you're always busy working. If you've ever seen bees, you've noticed that they're always busy. They're always buzzing around. They're going from flower to flower to flower, back to the hive, out to find flowers. And so they're just very busy little animals and very fun to watch. And if you ever see any bees in your yard, remember to give them some space and you can watch and see what they're doing. And maybe try to follow them and see if you can find where they live. All right, well, I hope you have a wonderful day and that you are thinking about bees today. I'll see you soon.